Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. Today, I'm talking again about anxiety and depression. Yesterday, I talked a little bit about my experience with these two things, and I want to get into it a little bit more today, talking about both the stigma that other people have against anxiety and depression, as well as some of the unreasonable expectations that those of us who suffer from them have about getting rid of them. And so, reading a little bit from Fuck Feelings by Dr. Michael I. Bennett and Sarah Bennett, they say the unfun kind of fear is the common denominator of anxiety disorders, and those who suffer from them often share and run into the same BS attitude that depressives have. Their emotions must be understandable, like normal anxiety and sadness. So if they just figure out what's bothering them, confront it, and move on, they'll be anxious no more. In the same way most people confuse depression with passing sadness or sulking, anxiety is often mistaken for plain old horror movie style fear. In reality, anxiety can get much worse and appear in many forms. So first things first is that the people who have never experienced depression and anxiety will have a difficult time understanding what anxiety and depression really feel like. That's all there is to it. And it's very easy to look at someone who seems to be very down on themselves, who seems to be very sad, who seems to be in a slump they can't get out of. It's very easy to look at that person and say, think positive. You're being too hard on yourself, and to give them all these different instructions in terms of how they should think that will help lift them out of their unhappiness. Same thing with someone who's suffering from a lot of anxiety. It seems like it should be easy to tell people who are in that situation, hey, calm down, everything's okay, you're okay, the world's going to be okay, you're going to be all right, and that they should calm down. And that's not the way it works. These, by and large, are exaggerated biochemical reactions to the world around us, and a lot of them are a lot of the synthesis of these things, they're genetic. There's an evolutionary factor to it. I mean, one of the things that they say in the book is if people who suffer from anxiety are guilty of anything, it's being born at the wrong time. There was a time when being hyper alert and quick to fear was the best way to keep from being eaten by a prehistoric mega bear or stay prepared for an attack by a rival warlord. So anxiety, depression, as weird as it seems, may actually have served a purpose in the past for human beings, but in a world where we're not constantly under threat to our lives, these kind of reactions to the world around us are typically exaggerated in terms of what we're actually dealing with, especially in a country like America, where we don't typically face life-threatening situations on a day-to-day basis. And so what we have to do is look at, and what I've had to do is look at not trying to think my way out of these situations. And this is such a common theme for me in my recovery. You know, when I was trying to treat depression and anxiety in myself prior to coming to recovery, I always tried to think my way out. I always tried to talk my way out. I always thought that was going to be the key, is if I can just figure out the key in my brain. What are the magical words I need to think or I need to say to somebody to turn that key so that all of this depression and anxiety will flood out of me and happiness and peace and serenity will flood in. And the problem with that is that just talking about depression and anxiety can actually make it worse. It a lot of times it doesn't get you anywhere. Um, Fear is amazingly, this is from the book. They say fear is amazingly good at causing fear. It's the mind's best perpetual motion machine. If someone asked me to talk to them about why I was depressed, most of the time I would end up more depressed at the end of that conversation than I did coming in. A lot of times I would go to my therapist and the conversation was cathartic, but that feeling only lasted a while. So the other thing that people in these situations face is that there is a big stigma against people with depression and anxiety. They're viewed as weak. We are viewed as people who just don't have it together, who aren't emotionally stable, people who don't have enough maturity, haven't accepted life. There's all sorts of different views, again, from people who have never experienced or studied these things at any particular level. So, if you are someone who suffers from depression and anxiety, the two pieces of advice I can give to you, the two best pieces of advice I can give to you as a non-professional and as a non-expert outside of just my own experience, is that one, try not to let the people who don't understand what you're going to, try not to let them bother you. I know that's hard. And as I sit here saying this, I'm starting to tear up a little bit because I know how hard it is when you're going through that kind of emotional turmoil to feel like nobody understands you. And I totally get that. But try not to let that bother you, and try to push past that, because there are people out there who have gone through what you've gone through. I'm one of them. There are millions and millions of people who have gone through what you've gone through, and there are a lot of people who can help you find not the words and not the thoughts that can help you address what you're going through, but the actions. And that's the big theme that always comes up for me in recovery, is that it's not I can't think my way out of my problems. I can't talk my way out of my problems. I have to act my way out of them. And so I have to do things like meditate every day and do relaxation exercises every day. Now, when I first went nearly 16 years ago to get help with anxiety problems, that's what my doctor told me to do. He said, you need to do these relaxation exercises every day. Did I do that? No. I would do them a couple days before my next appointment, and then I wouldn't do them again. So now I practice them every day. I got to trust the expert here, and that action has made a difference. It's made a difference. Doing the kinds of things that my cognitive behavioral therapist, who I saw in treatment, told me to do has been extremely helpful. And then a lot of the step work and the work that you do in the AA program and other programs of recovery is very similar to cognitive behavioral therapy. A lot of the work that we do in step 4 in AA, particularly around fear, where we're really pulling all of our fears out, taking a look at them, looking at why we have them, and looking at why they might not be the most rational reaction to the world around us. There's a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy in that kind of work. And it really helped me to take an honest look and be honest with myself about where my fears were coming from, and then get a better sense of the power that they had over me and what I could do about it. And the bottom line for me is that, again, like I said yesterday, the work that I have to do to address these things is a daily thing. It doesn't mean they go away. And that's the unfortunate part. You know, I can honestly say that I have not had a panic attack since I got sober. Do I still have anxiety? Yeah, I do. I can honestly say I have not had a day where I wanted to kill myself since I got sober. Do I still get depressed sometimes? Yeah, I do. And that's okay, because I know how to deal with that when it comes up now. And the impact it has is much less for me. So, if you're suffering from anxiety and depression, please know there are many of us who are there with you, who have been through it, who are here to help. Reach out, find someone you can talk to about it, but be prepared for the response and the action that's needed to really deal with these two things. You can't talk through these things. You've got to act your way away from them. That's it for today. Thanks, and I'll be back here tomorrow with more.